Na wasalimuni nyote nikiwa hapa mwambao wa pwani kando mwa bahari Hindi. As the government winds up its retreat, many Kenyans are asking many questions. Of course, the most obvious question is how a broke government can engage in such extravagancy, because that's a very expensive retreat. People are wondering how this sits with the government's declared intention to save, but those are minor issues. The bombshell coming from Nanyuki at the retreat is that the president is asking Parliament to prepare to receive cabinet secretaries akin to the olden days under the old constitution, where ministers went to answer questions, and that is raising a lot of concern. The overall concern is whether the president is out to mutilate the constitution or do unconstitutional things. But first, sticking with the ministers going to Parliament, what benefit are we going to derive from that? The answer is very little. Those who watched proceedings in Parliament during those days would remember that that is the only time Parliament was active. That is the only time the House was full. So that immediately after question time, when ministers had answered questions, the House will be so empty that at points a bill will be discussed with less than 5 members of Parliament. But what was the benefit of the question-answer session? Unlike in the UK, where the Prime Minister is put to task, ministers came with plastic answers. A, is the government aware that Project A has stalled? B, is government aware, blah, blah, blah. C, what is the government planning to do, or the ministry? And the minister stands. A, the government is aware that that road has stalled. B, the government is aware that the contractor has left the site. C, the project will continue as soon as funds are available. So is that the sort of thing we want to get back to? I doubt. But from a constitutional point of view, Kenya is a presidential system, badly borrowed from South Africa and America. But a presidential system, nevertheless, does such a system have space for what the president is suggesting? Surely, certainly no. This presidential system does not have that kind of space. That this sort of thing happens in a parliamentary system. Kenya is not a parliamentary system. So what is the benefit then of ministers coming to Parliament? It will be unconstitutional because you will have to re-engineer the constitution in a way that you can only do so in a referendum. Now, this particular issue raises concerns. Coming after the president's attempt, the president's serious attempt to introduce the office of the official opposition. Again, clearly unconstitutional, if you may ask me. The leader of opposition is an office you have in a parliamentary system. Because according to our constitution today, there is no opposition in parliament. What we have is a minority and majority side. But Parliament as an institution is one to oversight the executive. So when you impose the leader of the opposition, what are you telling Kenyans? My take is, certainly, this is unconstitutional. And even if it was not unconstitutional, what is the benefit? Now, there's a small danger in our constitution. Namely, that if you introduce a bill in Parliament, a constitutional amendment bill in Parliament, and it goes through, when it lands to the President, on the President's desk for assent, it is him to decide whether that bill is for a referendum or he can put his hand on it. That is the danger. That the power the President has to decide whether to assent to a bill or whether that bill requires a referendum. That power is with the President. And because of this, some of these bills the President is introducing that are unconstitutional will certainly sail through Parliament. And it's not just these two. There is another one. Our courts, the Supreme Court no less, has made a clear finding and given a clear opinion, clear judgment, that CDF is unconstitutional. Yet there are attempts supported by the President to have CDF reintroduced by whatever name, in whatever manner. This again is unconstitutional. So the question that many Kenyans are beginning to ask, why is the President, first of all, in an attempt to create an opposition? Imagine a situation where you are in power, you are going out of your way to create an opposition for yourself. I mean, to your government. Leader of opposition, ministers in Parliament to be engaged by Parliament, most likely to be put to task by the opposition MPs, those in the minority. So it's not just a question of an assault, an affront on the Constitution. It's also the suspect nature of the whole exercise. Therefore, as a good citizen, as a man who loves his country, I would want to advise the President of the Republic of Kenya that, as I've said many times, perceptions are strong in public affairs. And the perception in this country, there are many Kenyans who believe the President is out to mess the Constitution. I urge the President to go slow. As a person, you stand nothing to gain by creating the leader of the official opposition. As a person and as head of government, you stand to gain nothing by taking ministers to Parliament. As a president, a defender of what is good for the people of Kenya, you stand to gain nothing by supporting MPs. Because then people think you are out to sort of bribe, if you wish, in courts. That the President is out to bring people to his side, including institutions. The judiciary has been mentioned. Parliament is being mentioned because of that and because of CDF. There was a president in Botswana. When members of Parliament wanted to increase salaries, he put his foot down and say, for the people of Botswana I speak and I say no. He came out very popular and the MPs didn't have their way. When we were designing this constitution, There were a number of things Kenyans talked about. One of the things Kenyans talked about was the greed of MPs and of other senior public servants. And that's why SRC came to tame the greed of MPs. It has failed. Instead, it is harassing civil servants, public servants. When they have had effective CBS, it is standing in the way of the employer and the employees by way of CBA. Even where it is just supposed to give advice. It has failed. SRC has failed to tame the greed of MPs, which is what Kenyans wanted. And that's why I advise the president. Don't go the populist way. Stand with the people of Kenya and tell MPs, you cannot be the ones in oversight. At the same time, you are the ones implementing. The role of the MP is very clear. Representation, legislation, and oversight. An MP cannot be a manager of a fund. Because then who is going to oversight that member of parliament? This may be unpopular, but the president has to stand with the people of Kenya. Because that, again, is unconstitutional. No less an institution than the Supreme Court and our courts have said, from the High Court all the way to the Supreme Court, that CDF is unconstitutional. It does not matter how you bring it, what name you give it, what corners you cut. And therefore, from Nanyuki, people are not only wondering how our government ought to save, to cut costs, is spending and burning money. No. They are wondering how. They are asking questions why it was necessary to go there. What example are you setting when government ministers and departments are supposed to begin saving? Are supposed to stop wastage, endless seminars, traveling to Naivasha, Mombasa, and everywhere. And yet government is setting the example that that is okay. People are wondering about that, but much more so by the pronouncement on ministers going to parliament, coming after the CDF staff, coming after the issue of the leader of opposition, issues that are clearly unconstitutional and of no benefit to the people of Kenya. Questions are emerging. I am sure the president loves this country enough to hear the voice of those who are saying, don't listen to the few. Don't try to be populist. Work for the people of Kenya. Because that is what the people of Kenya will remember you for many years to come.